Let's go over the top off-meta picks in Pro Play for Season 14. There have actually been more than I was suspecting because usually only the most meta picks are taken in Pro Play, but it's always fun to see some off-meta picks at the highest level of competition. This is taken out of 3,805 games, so let's start with our number 10. And for number 10, we have a tie with 5 picks each. We have Sejuani and Kalista. Sejuani I understand, Kalista not as much, but hey, you can save your ADC in a pinch with one button. These champions are picked pretty heavily in their meta roles, so just having them in the game is probably useful enough. Sejuani can bring a lot of CC and early damage. Kalista just brings a lot of damage in general and can basically act as an extra smite, and each of them are rocking a 60% win rate, so we'll just make it a true tie. Number 9, we actually have another tie. Each of these champions have 6 games, only 6 games, but that's still a decent bit for Pro Play. One of those champions is Yasuo, and he has the most bans associated with him out of these 3 champs that are tied here. However, Pantheon has the highest win rate, winning 5 of the 6 games that he was picked in, so I'm gonna put him as the true number 9 spot. And last of the 3 is my poor Amumu with only winning 1 of the 6 games, but hey, we got our boy Pantheon. Pantheon can be a fantastic support with high damage with his Q, good CC with his W, and great survivability with his E. He also does start to have a global presence once his ult is up, and ganking the mid lane becomes super easy as well. And hey, you can even gank your own lane while walking back from Fountain. Now, number 8 spot, we have our drunken Bara boy Gragas. Gragas has 8 games as a support with a total of 133 bans, but I'm sure all those bans have in no way are going to be associated with support Gragas. Most of the time in Pro Play, Gragas acts as a front-line tank disruptor. He doesn't really spend a lot of time dealing that giant big hunga damage. In these games as a support, he does have a 50% win rate, so not bad, my man. Now for our number 7 pick, it actually did surprise me, but after you think about it, it's not as far-fetched as you would have thought, and that pick is Varus. He has about 9 games, but he is the premier ADC picked in Pro Play with 1,449 ADC picks and a total of 1,713 bans, and this makes him appear in 83% of all Pro Play games. And that does surprise me. If he's being picked so much as an ADC, it's weird that he's picked as a support. But he was, and he can be that huge damage lethality support. He was primarily used as a counter to Senna and Ashe support, and well, let's just say he didn't do too well. But if you do pick him up in Pro Play, I think he is actually a pretty good support. You can just do a lot of damage with your Q, and then just have a lot of CC with your ult later on. Now, number 6, we're starting to get to the champions that have a bit more games, and with this pick we have Ornn, the tank assassin ADC Bruiser mage support. Ornn's support has a total of 29 picks, which is actually a lot for off-meta supports, but I mean 29 isn't a lot, but definitely way better than 9. Now Ornn seems to be picked as a counter to most engaged supports, mostly Nautilus, as Nautilus is the premier number 1 support in Pro. His W makes him unstoppable and unable to be pulled or displaced. His charge is a good form of CC. He does have some good poke damage and fantastic engage with his ult. And even as a support, he does scale extremely well into the late game because you can just scale your team and upgrade their item. He also does have a pretty good win rate with 65%, so honestly, seems like a pretty good pickup. Number 5, we have the Donger. He comes in with 34 games, just a bit above Ornn, but he also has 32 bans as well, and I believe those bans are actually associated with the support pick. Now, that does mean he's only showing up in about 2% of games, but hey, that's something, right? Heimer is very good at holding space and a good counter to engage supports, because if they do try and come in on you, they're going to have to face the wrath of your turrets. However, with the games being quite mobile in Pro Play, you really need to know where to set up properly, and the entire team needs to really fight around you, and that might be the reason why he only has a 41% win rate. Not that I don't think that pros don't know how to fight around the Heimer turrets, but you know, the other pros also know how to fight around not being in the Heimer turrets. And honestly, with this pick, if your team ends up falling behind, it can be really tough for you to catch up because you need to have the zone control of the objectives, and that might just not happen because you're that far behind. Number 4, yes, that's right, we have Camille, the knife-footed menace of true damage. She is very strong in the early game, especially against squishy champions, but also good as a counter engage. But she is also good at locking down very mobile ADCs with her ult, and has an extremely long engage range with her E. Now, she does only have a 44% win rate in the pro play, but honestly in solo queue, oh my god, one of the best. S tier, baby. And that's probably why she's being played at this highest level. Number 3, we have the Baron of Burn. We have the Rumble support, baby, with 46 games. Rumble has been like one of the default top picks in pro play for literally as long as I can remember. He actually only has 550 top games, but that is still a lot. And to be honest, if there were just like a smorgasbord of an insane top laners, then I think he would be played as a support more. He has good spacing tools with his Flame Spitter, good poke with his E, and honestly has one of the highest impact ults in the game if it's placed correctly, and that's why he has literally been played in pro play since he was released, basically. And with a 54% win rate is a solid pickup, especially if you're light. Now we're getting down to it. Number 2, we have the Mr. 10 abilities himself, Wei. After his normal person release, he had like a 30% win rate. I honestly thought immediately that he was going to be picked in pro play. I knew he would just start to be a staple, and I was right. He has 57 support picks, and he is the Swiss Army knife of a champion. He has the damage, the utility, the CC, and he has 3 versions of all of these, and it makes him fantastic because he just how many options he has. Average Joe League player might not be able to pick him up, but when you put him in the hands of the best players in the world, he's rocking that 52.6% win rate. It's literally what happened with Azir. Now, before we get into the number 1, I am going to put an honorable mention here, and I've been considering this champion to be an off-meta support for a while, but I think he's finally bled into the just a normal support, and that's Maokai. Maokai had 337 picks, but is still the most picked jungler. Honestly, in most games, it seems like if you don't have him in a jungle, you're just going to pick him as a support, especially with a 54.3% win rate in those 337 games. He has a really extremely huge ult that can funnel an entire team, leading to possibly huge wombo combos, and just the ability to space out the entire team if you just want to push them off. And if you're playing solo queue, pick Maokai support. Wow, like why not? He's just so good. One last thing before we get into number 1, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and like the video if you like the video. Now, for the number 1 pick, it's the moment you've been waiting for. Now, I know there has been some questions in my tier list video about whether this is actually off meta or not, but for the number 1 pick, we have the maybe, might not be, but still considered off meta Nico. Now, at this level, most players are not going to fall for her passive, but if they do, it becomes a fantastic viewing experience. But hey, it's all a mental thing. If you're giving the enemy team, all the enemy players, something that they always have to think about in the back of their mind, then that's actually a good thing. But she also has good damage, a bind that hits everything in a pretty long line, but also an extremely high impact ult that will deal a ton of damage and CCs anyone caught in it. Oh yeah, and she was picked 75 times and just a bit over a 50% win rate. So honestly, solid pickup. And that's it, we did it. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my tier list of every single champion as they should be as an off-meta support. I think I explained that right. Good enough. Talk to you later.